All right, so welcome guys. Can you close that door, please? Yeah. Sorry for the delay. It took a while. We had some technical difficulties and all that sort of stuff. So in today's seminar, we're going to be talking about, let me see, some pretty good topic that we started talking about earlier, and I had to finish up because it's such a great topic. Give me 1 second, guys. So the first topic we're going to be talking about is about social conditioning, right? And the main premise of the seminar is all about teaching you guys the inner workings of what causes you to feel confident, what causes you to lose confidence around certain guys, right? And it'll not just be for dating, it'll expand outside of dating. But the arena where you're going to be practicing these life skills are in dating. Because there's very few arenas out there that provide so much pain and so much suffering and horrible pain other than dating, my bad. And so we're going to be covering social conditioning, we're going to be covering role playing, we're going to be covering presence, we're going to be covering how to be present, and stuff that you hear in the videos, but we're a little bit more in depth, all right? So you guys are definitely going to enjoy this, and you guys out there too, okay? So let me get the files right now. All right. So the most important skill that you guys have to learn, and this is something that most people don't tell you guys, and it's not how to talk to guys, is learning how to learn. Because when you learn how to learn, you pretty much have an underlying confidence whenever you encounter a struggle. Because you know deep down that I may struggle with this, but I know that I'm going to be good at this. You know, so you encounter problems, but you encounter problems with a presence of mind. Now, you learn how to learn through understanding how the brain works. Like, the brain doesn't work through automatically understanding something. The brain learns through struggling with something, through experiencing pain and noticing the contrast of being good at something and not being good at something. But your brain is not really going to catch the drift if you don't give it time, which means if you don't fail. You know, learning how to learn is experiencing failure, which in the case in dating is experiencing rejection, right? Fuck that shit, right? Experiencing all of those things that you have, like breakups. Those are all moments where you can learn from it, but most people don't do it because it's painful, right? It really is, right? So something you also got to admire that, I'm reading this. It says, it's okay to admire, just don't idolize someone. Remove the heavenly aura behind your role models as well, right? Learning how to learn doesn't just come from learning your internal models of the world or how to learn things, but also removing the barriers that you have between people who you admire and yourself. Like when you see someone with a certain skill set, you're like, wow, I want to be like him or her, or be like her. You tend to idolize them to the point that you give them this heavenly aura and you say, I can never be like them, like Kanye West, or Jay-Z, right? Don't try to be like someone, but don't be like Jay-Z because he's too big.
Be better.
Yeah, but that's the point. The thing is that most people don't strive towards those goals because it feels like it's impossible. You see, that's the thing, is that you learn how to learn through also learning how your brain works, but also understanding that those people are normal. The problem is that you don't see that they're normal because social conditioning has put you in a place where they tell you don't try to be that, because there's a lot of reasons why you cannot be that. One, not many people could be that. And two, we can't really encourage people to be that great because we need people in the bottom, unfortunately, right? But like we said earlier, the beauty about this is that we have a choice now, because there's plenty of people who don't believe in themselves, right? But you guys are making that different choice. And also, you have to also remove the veil of who you think you are, which is you have a conceptual image of you, and that conceptual image is based on your past. So that conceptual image predicts your future. You're going to say, because this is who I am, I cannot be something outside of that. You know, you begin to identify with the thoughts, with the images, and also what people tell you, right? And those things limit you. They limit your personality. They limit what you feel. They limit what you experience. They limit how much you experience the world because of those social conditioning, right? And so those barriers that you experience all have one simple source, which is the ego. And this is why I talk about presence a lot, because it doesn't just, and I hate to be a broken recorder, but there is something to be said about your ego, where it not only fools you into unhappiness, but it fools you into mediocrity, where you see success and your ego says, that's not me. What's that? That's not me. That's a thought. Who's aware of that thought? Awareness. If you learn how to just be aware of that thought, you know what's going to happen whenever you experience doubt? You're going to smile at your doubt. You're not going to be doubtful. You're going to be confident, because those doubts are in the form of what? Of thoughts. but you're not those thoughts, right? That's just the beginning. Oh man, I gotta go into this. All right, so you're not made out of a different cloth. That's pretty much it. Like when you see successful people who have experienced success, you gotta realize that they're not different from you. The mind tries to convince you that they are different, but they're really not. But you feel it, all right? You feel like, oh, they're so successful. Oh, look at Alex talking. How the hell did he learn that? I will never learn that. No, like I learned this like you will learn almost anything. I just happen to be more obsessed about it, right? And the problem is that when you think that I'm special, right? What's gonna happen is that you're gonna compare yourself to me. And because you admire me so much, I'm just assuming, you're going to say, you know what, he's special, I'm not. Let me not do nothing about it because he's just different. Like you don't realize that I'm different, not because of I'm different, but because I just happen to use what you have a little bit more efficiently, you know? And that's the thing, is that if you feel bad about that, then that means you're still identifying with your thoughts, which means that just because you suck at something doesn't mean that's who you are. That just means you don't know something. You know, when it comes to dating and even emotional intelligence, when you feel needy and angry, that's not who you are. It's just that you just never learn how to deal with your emotions. You know, if you make a big deal of what people tell you, that doesn't mean that's who you are. You just never learn how to deal with criticism. That's just, it's all a skill set. It's all a skill set. It's not who you are. It's a skill that you just never learn. So when you view it from that perspective, it's kind of like, it liberates you a bit. Because you're kind of like, oh shit, I'm not that. Like, it's just my skill level is not there. Like I just don't know how to talk as well. That means I can learn it. That means I don't know how to deal with my emotions. That means I can learn it because those are all brain circuitries that you just happen to not reinforce because you just never really focused on it, or because nobody really taught you that. You know? I know it sounds simple. Any questions? Sounds okay. Good. That's a good thing when people don't have questions. It's a good sign.
So I do have a question. So would you say, or am I thinking about this properly? The source of all pain is your ego. When you encounter something that's uncomfortable, like a bad breakup, or you're not doing well in your job as you're thinking, you're getting like negative feedback, is not who you are. As you just haven't got to where you want to be, and your ego is bruised.
Mm-hmm. Is that a question?
I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna cover that. Don't worry about that, man. So there's another thing that you gotta realize. It's called the 80-20 rule. You ever heard of the 80-20 rule?
Yeah.
It's called Pareto's Principle. It says 20% of the things you do produces 80% of the results. 80% of the things you do produces 20% of the results. So I learned that through talking to girls, where I knew a lot of techniques, right? But I was like, fuck, too many techniques. So what do you do then? You find out the 20% of the techniques that produces 80% of your results. Suddenly your workload lowers, you're focusing on the high efficiency techniques, and you're reducing the techniques that only produce 20% of the results. So most people focus on the 80% that produces 20% of the results. And that's why they do a lot, but they don't get a lot. But what I began to do was, I said to myself, okay, let me just focus on the 20% that produces 80% of the results. And then let me focus on the 20% of the things that I do that produces 80% of my rejections. So rather than focusing on every aspect of who I am that causes rejection, I just say, all right, what's 20% of the things I do that's causing 80% of my rejections? You know what I noticed? My mental projection. What I thought about the girl. Oh, I'm approaching her, oh fuck, she's too hot. Oh, hey, how are you? And that mental projection caused me to act in a different way. Most people just focus on the action. Oh fuck, I'm scared. All right, let me try to act confident. You see, so it's kind of like, I'm confident. And it looks weird. Like, you're not being confident, right? What you gotta do is go inside. Learn how to deal with that emotion, and suddenly the action will arise naturally. You're focusing on the least, on the highest efficiency techniques, and removing the things that produces the most rejections. That's why I talk about presence a lot. Because if you notice, you observe your rejections, okay, and then you're able to act from a place of relaxation, right? And so in your case, you got to find out the 80%, the 20% of the things you guys do that's producing 80% of your problems in your relationships. You guys might have a lot of little naggy things, but there has to be like those 2 or 3 things that if you just focus on that, which is completely blow away everything that you do, which is fix everything. That's why I talk about focusing on the breath a lot. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but like, when I have so many different applications, why should I dilute the message and dilute and give you information where you guys don't need? I don't need you guys to become information junkies, right? Most people just want that because it sounds smart, but I'd rather focusing on the things that produces the highest results. And so what I'm going to be teaching you guys is those 20% that produces 80% of the results. And I do know a lot more than this, but it makes no sense to teach you guys things that sound pretty, but doesn't really produce a lot of results. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's pretty much that's the introduction. Okay. So, So why is dating a struggle, right? Because dating fucking sucks ass a lot of the times, right? Like it's painful. That's the struggle behind dating, right? It's called a limiting belief that we have about dating, right? The majority of the population walk around without knowing their values, identity, and what they want out of life, right? Social conditioning says that in order to be happy, you must have a relationship, right? And that's all you need to be happy. A relationship, get that nice presidential picture of the relationship, of the happiness. And that's all you need. That's what everyone tells you. Around Valentine's Day and around Christmas, we usually feel the most depressed, right? That's when people experience depression, when people say, this is the time to be happy, right? Get your couples, get your kids, get happy. Now suddenly you're alone and you're watching people, they look happy, they're smiling, right? Right? And you see yourself, you're comparing yourself, you're like, oh fuck, I suck, right? And so, if it wasn't for that special day, and if it wasn't that you were comparing yourself to other people, would you be unhappy in that moment? You wouldn't.
The hardest time for me is holidays.
Yeah, and those are all just mental projections. That's all because you're identifying with your mind, right? And so that's one of the reasons why relationships are a struggle, because we usually never live up to those expectations that people tell us about what relationships should fulfill in us. You see it and you say, oh, fuck, it doesn't match the model that I have. But this model that you have is pretty impossible to fulfill. And that's why you see a guy, and most guys are not enough for you because the expectations doesn't meet them. Like happiness is a function of expectation. That's what it is, So social conditioning also lays out, so if that's no one, so never mind. Social conditioning also lays out the standard relationship which becomes unrealistic. So as you guys can see, they set you up for failure, right? Buy this ring. Make sure you make her happy. Get her this so that she can feel happy. Like you have so many different things that they tell you. Why is that? They need to make sure you feel shitty so that you can buy shit, so that you can feel better, right? Stimulation, so you get more stimulation, right? In order for you to buy something, you need to need it. So they tell you, hey, look, you feel unhappy? Get on that eHarmony. Maybe you could find something. What? You feel unhappy? Buy that shirt. Nah, you don't need to wear it. Just put it there. It's going to be in the closet for 1 year with the ticket on. Like everyone has that, right? And that's because people tell you, if you buy this, you'll feel happy. If you watch this video, you'll feel happy. And so that's the habit that people get into. If you get into this relationship, you'll feel happy, right? And so you begin to put a very unrealistic burden on relationships and on men. And now you see them not as men, but as a source of happiness. You don't see them as people, you see them as objects of self-esteem, right? And then you say that men use me as an object, but then we do the same thing. Same thing. It's just in different ways. We're all hypocrites in the same fat aspect, And so the thing is that the crazy thing is that this thing works because people are very fast learners. We learn through like first-hand experience and second-hand experience. The fastest way to learn is through having a social environment that rewards those belief systems. We live in America. We reward consumerism. We reward the external. We reward people with relationships. We don't reward the happiness because we don't really fucking see that, right? We just reward the external. We don't reward people being happy at their jobs. We just reward the Facebook picture of them getting the job. But then you don't see them unhappy, right? That's what the same thing with relationships. They just say, have that image so that we can look good for other countries. Look nice. That's all you got to do. But then when you go back home, you're not happy because people are telling you that that's important. But then when you go back inside yourself, you realize that doesn't really change you. Heck, it diminishes who you think you are, right? And that's all because of social conditioning, right? The most social conditioning is good, like I said. It allows people to survive and keep order, but it's not good for happiness. Because most of the things in social conditioning is just to maintain the whole, not to make the individual happy. That makes sense? Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, right? And that happens a lot. For example, like when I'm talking to girls, the social conditioning for guys is that a beautiful girl is the pinnacle of achievement. So when I'm approaching a girl, my mental model of the world, for the most part, for most guys, not me anymore, but I would think that, okay, the most girls, they want a guy with money and all that sort of stuff, right? With looks. What happens when I approach a girl using that kind of mentality? I really feel shitty because I don't meet that. So I'm like, hey girl, right? And it's because I'm working with those social conditioning. She's also buying into that. So what happens? She's the hot girl and I'm the skimpy guy. She's like, nah, I don't think you, right? Because we're playing into that role. she senses my insecurity because of me buying into what people are telling me, right? And so what happens? It activates her own insecurity through acting cocky. See, so it's two insecurities acting, two egos acting upon each other, right? And that's all because of social conditioning, because you choose to believe those things. Make sense? Okay, good. But I'm gonna show you guys how to not believe them. So I'm not just gonna keep you guys feeling like shit.
What if we have everything we need?
Good.
We approach it.
What do you mean by that?
Approach dating. I mean, as in the sense of, I have everything I need.
Me too.
You have everything you need. You have everything you need.
Maybe.
Not just physically, but knowing your own shit and approaching it from, well, I have everything I need.
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't put out your insecurities out there like that. No one will be able to know them and use them against you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
You have everything you need. What if we say, okay, we say in our mind, even though we're not there yet, we have everything we need.
Yeah.
And you're going to dating, you won't come across as insecure because you have everything you need.
Well, the thing is
You know what I
that,
mean?
yeah, I see what you mean, but we usually don't have everything you need because there's still the need for validation. That would never be
What if you let go of the need for validation?
perfect. Then you already did it. That's it. You're there. Get out. Like if you don't have no need for validation, then that means that you already validated yourself. That means that you're not compartmentalizing yourself. You're not just putting out the good and hiding the bad. You're putting everything out there, not just to the world, but to yourself.
Right.
Right? But then a lot of times you reject yourself through just focusing on the good. Everything is so good that you just want to focus on the good and you just neglect the bad. Also, that happens a lot.
Sometimes, but not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think for me, well, just in general, I think as women or just as people, you should be able to, get a hold of your own shit. Like, you know what I mean? And what I mean by that is like accepting that you're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. You're just working in progress.
Mm-hmm.
You find somebody who likes your work in progress and you work together to build some shit.
Sounds so good, right?
Right.
Sounds so easy.
It sounds easy.
It's not. It really isn't. Like, paper is good, Why can't people just live together,
Right.
Everyone has their paid income and, come on. Yeah, it's unrealistic, unfortunately. We wish it was like that. But,
Unrealistic.
yeah, it is. But nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's unrealistic, but then that's the first step. Was you thought it was realistic. And then it's like trying to count to infinity. You're not gonna do it, but if you think you could, you're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna be going in that circle infinitely. You're never gonna get it. So that's the first part, social conditioning, right? Now, we're gonna talk about presence now. I love this topic. It is my favorite topic of all time.
I love being present.
Oh, yes.
Like every day.
Yeah.
I love being present. I'm like, yesterday I was like, we're at the gas station pumping gas. That's it right now. So
Yeah.
be present.
This is it.
That's it. Nothing's
Yeah.
happening.
Nothing else, man. Just focusing on what's in front of you, right?
In your mind, but not in real life.
All right. No, we're gonna talk about this. Right? I love this topic, right? So, before we talk about presence, let's talk about the normal state of consciousness that we all live in, right? Usually, the state of consciousness that most people live in is in fear. That's the normal state of consciousness, right? The causes of it is not the actual experience, but rather a misinterpretation of reality. Right? We usually break reality into a multiplicity of different objects and perceptions, right? Okay, so this is like one of those topics, right? So it takes time for me to get into that rhythm because it's like, gotta read this. All right, so let's get into this, the lecture. Let's get into this, all right? So the reason why most people feel fear is because they feel a separation between themselves and the world. Right? This separation comes in the form of a thought. Now, what thought is that? The thought is that I am inside and the world is out there. Right? And so because of that, you begin to say, I'm inside. Now, suddenly, because I am inside, you begin to identify with the thoughts that occur inside and you begin to disidentify with the environment. Right? I don't see you as you, I see you as an other. I don't see you as me, but I see you as another. Right? And so this misinterpretation comes because of a thought. The thought arises, I'm happy, I feel this. And so the more I happens, the more engraved you are within yourself, right? And so what happens? You begin to see the world as a fearful kind of place. You begin that also the world also is anything outside of of the identity of who you are. So that also means the future. That also means the past. All of those things produces fear. right? And so this misinterpretation makes us feel helpless. This helplessness is expressed through the feeling of being helpless. No, through the feeling of resistance, right? Because you feel that you're experiencing something, right? And because you think that will always be there, or because you think that whatever's in front of you is who you are, what do you experience? You experience resistance, right? Everyone's looking at that. Holy shit. Oh, you guys just like looked. Right, who's the bitch? Right? Holding this right here, man. If it's a text message, I'm sending it to you guys. I can't have you guys lose focus, man. There you go. So this misinterpretation of reality makes us feel the resistance, right? And so seeing reality as permanent causes you to see people for external appearances and their temporalities, right? If they act under that mistaken assumption, where you allow that impression to stay there. You don't understand the impermanence of reality. So suddenly, let's say I get mad at you, I offend you, right? You're gonna say, oh, you offended me, right? And then you're gonna see me as that person who you saw in the past. So now suddenly who I am to you is that emotional imprint that you allow to stay there, right? And now you see me next time, what do you see? You see me through your past. Why? Not because of the actual perception, but because your interpretation of the experience, the resistance that you felt. Like, I didn't like that. And because you didn't like that, that stays. Nope. Yeah. And you're in the present, but then you're in the past, right? You see me, but then you keep going back from present to past. What's happening is not the real past. What's happening is you're just resisting that emotion. You're resisting a physical sensation. Right? And what that resistance causes you to see the person as not how they really are, but rather how you're projecting them to be. And so you just begin to see the world as something that's really not there. You begin to see fear where there shouldn't be fear. And that also comes within yourself, right? So part of awakening is seen through the permanent illusory surface and realizing that we are all one rather than separate. Not taking the surface as the permanent and all-encompassing reality. So that means that if I feel shitty, I'm not going to say I'm someone who feels shitty. I'm just going to observe the shittiness, right? Because I know that it's going to pass. Most people observe themselves feel shitty and they resist. They resist not because they're going to change, but because they think that this is how it's always going to be, right? And so that's what happens, that you feel helpless because you think you cannot control who you are and the environment around you. And what happens? You feel the fear. This fear comes in many different ways. It comes of insecurity, being shy because you're afraid of being paid attention, being extroverted because you're afraid of not being paid attention, right? And so this fear is manifested. It just breaks up into different kinds of, it just branches out. The root is fear, but just have different branches, different egos, and all that sort of stuff. So that's how most people live, and that's why most people are always defensive. That's why most people are always like snap very quickly because they're hurt. But they're holding on to that pain because they don't want to experience it. What's ironic is that if you don't mind feeling pain, you actually let go of it, right? And so this illusion causes reality to look permanent. So you know what that means? That means that if you see yourself in a circumstance, you're not going to believe you're going to be able to change it because you think this is how it's always going to be. Remember when I told you, learning how to learn, realizing that some people, that it's not who you are, but rather it's just some things you just don't know, right? When you're in a state of fear, what happens is that what you don't know becomes who you are. For example, you play basketball. I play basketball a lot, and I used to suck a lot of basketball, right? And so because I know that, I didn't know what it took to get good at basketball. When I sucked at basketball, you know how I felt? I felt helpless because I thought I was always going to suck, right? And so that's how I see the world, that permanence. This is how I'm always going to be. And this is how the environment is going to be. So realizing, seeing through the matrix is being able to see that this is all malleable. This is all malleable, but it's all based on your perception. It's all based on what you expect from the world, right? So when you understand that, then you're able to smile at it and say, all I need to do is find out what I am doing wrong and just fix it. Like, the wrongness doesn't become you. It just becomes a part of your experience that you could just change. So now suddenly you'll try to fix it, but you're not going to try to fix it with fear. You try to fix it with a smile, because even if you fail, you smile at it. Because it's just an object of your awareness. But in the past, you would fail. You thought you were a failure in the past, and that failure was doing what? Confirming who you are. But now you fail, and you're like, oh, okay, let's see what I'm doing wrong, right? You're not seeing yourself in the skill. You're just doing it. Like, you're not identifying with it. You're just realizing that it's just a skill. It's not you. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so this is also going to apply to you guys in dating, because this is important, because you got to understand that Yeah, just because you guys kind of, I'm not saying you guys suck, maybe you guys, but if you guys suck at dating, that just means that you could fix it. So yeah, you guys have bad relationships, but now you're going to smile at it. You're not going to say, oh, that was horrible. You're going to be like, well, I could fix it. Right? It's like a calm confidence. Like, yeah, I suck at this, but I'm going to get good at it. Make sense? All right. So seeing through the ego, right? So what is awakening? Because when you're in that state of consciousness, what happens is that you're unconscious. Now, you know how Eckhart Tolle talks about unconsciousness. You guys read Eckhart Tolle before? Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now?
I've downloaded it.
You downloaded it?
And I never read it.
Oh, how dare you?
I have the book, but never read it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But I did read the 4 Agreements.
4 Agreements? I never read that book. I hear it's good. Right? But he talks about being unconscious. When I'm being unconscious is being, for example, have you ever seen someone who gets angry and they black out? And so because they blacked out, they really don't recall what they did.
Yeah.
The reason why that is because they felt the emotion. It was so intense that it just became the emotion. And it just acted through them, almost like being possessed, right? But let's say they got angry, right? And suddenly when the anger arose, because it's very intense, that's why he blacked out, he just became aware of the anger. Like you felt anger, and you're like, wait a minute. You just notice it, right? You just breathe into it. And then acts. Is he really going to be unconscious in that moment? No.
He's present.
He's present, right? He's feeling the anger, but he's present. How is he present? Because there's a space between himself and the reaction, right? And so seeing through the ego and becoming awakened is not about, suddenly you start flying and shit, spinning around. No, it's all about seeing what's there. So what's here right now? You see it. The reason why you don't see it, huh?
It's a hard space to be in because you're caught between, okay, I see it, I'm feeling it, okay, I don't want to act right now, right? I want to, because you can't take back things that you say when you're angry, blacking out. So I've been there. It's not a weird space to be.
It is, and that's why a lot of people say a lot of stupid shit when they're angry too,
right.
Because they're in it. And then what happens when they realize they fucked up, when they calm down?
Nothing you can do.
No, but like they realize they fucked up when they calm down, when they create space. When the whole thing calms down, you're like, wait a minute, I kind of fucked up. I should have not quit my job, right? That happens. And so that's who quit. So that's why it happens a lot, and that happens because of you being unconscious. You feel the emotion, and it feels so painful that you try to divert your attention from inside to the outside. That outside is in your brain. So what happens in your mind, in the past or future, or in the situation, right? So you say, I don't like what I'm feeling. So you go into your head. You go into your imagination. You're not going into reality. The reality is the experience, the pain that sucks ass. But the imagination, where most people go to, is in their brains, which is where the identity lies, which is, oh, fuck, I'll fuck them up later on. That's to feel better, right? Or this is why I suck. You're looking into the past, right? That's all a mental, that's not who you are, right? But the reason why you suffer with that is because you think that's who you are. And that's always been there, because that's been there since you were a child, and that will always be, because it's always been there. You don't know any other way. Most people don't know any other way of being than just thinking a lot, right? It's really liberating when you actually experience a second of pure consciousness, where you just zoom there, right? And so, yeah, all right. So this ego so seeing through the ego is the thoughts that arises that separates you from reality. That's the ego, right? The thoughts that you experience. That says you feel an emotion, it feels like shit, and then a thought arises from that emotion. Oh, fuck, I suck, right? And now you say, oh, fuck, I suck. And now suddenly what happens when you do that? Your brain says, well, you do suck. Let me bring more memories. Oh, I suck. This because of this happened. Oh, I suck. I suck. I will suck.
Into your experience, your thoughts and your beliefs, so it's gonna confirm what you think about yourself.
Exactly.
I call it fueling my own fire.
Mm-hmm.
I say all the time to myself.
And it hardens your shell, the ego. That becomes a shell of the ego. And what happens is this: it's kind of like a shirt. This shirt is not a shirt. It's just a whole bunch of different strings. The different strings are the different little thoughts that come. The more thoughts come, the bigger the shirt gets, right? And so what you're doing by observing the thoughts and being present, you're just slowly taking out the little strings, right? And there's going to come a point where oh, it's recording. Okay. I think it says no battery. Okay, give me 1 second. All right. Sorry, guys. Can you move this all the way down there and connect it to that one? You see a connection right there. Yeah, you see a connection right there, right? There you go. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Sorry, technical difficulty. It's gonna die soon. And if it doesn't reach it there, then I guess we should put it